Hi, I'm Kat and welcome to my channel, and in this video I'm going to be talking about my second step on my journey towards learning archery, which is participating in a beginner's course at a local archery club. So my local archery club is the Royston Heath Archery Club, and they are a target shooting archery club, so I guess the other options are sort of field archery, can't remember the other one. But yeah, so they've been going since about 1995, and I think well, I haven't met them all. I think it's about 40-ish people in the club, and apparently the vast majority of those folks come and shoot regularly. The 4 or 5 that I've met as instructors on the course are all lovely people, very friendly, chatty, inclusive. So that's pretty nice. So the Royston Heath Archery Club meet on the heath near Royston, next to the Heath Sports Club. They have their own dedicated range, which is just sort of shooting away from the club, from the sports club, shooting towards a bank of trees. So the beginner's course itself is a 4-week course, and I've done weeks 1 and 2, and they were both great fun. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to skip week 3, which is coming Sunday, because I've got COVID. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, no, I feel fine, but I'm, testing positive and a bit of a cough. So yeah, we're now isolating once more. Anyway, so hopefully I can catch up and make it up in the following week, but we shall have to see. And right, so what have I learned so far? Well, yeah, so most importantly, range safety. Um, we did learn warm up exercises and cool down exercises. I've learned how to set up and take down the bow. I've learned how to set up and take down the target. And what else? Oh yeah, how the scoring system works. Um, all those things, and of course, how to shoot the bow. Okay, so the main thing that I've learned during this, whilst learning to shoot, is that consistency is king. Being able to do the exact same thing every single time, so exactly how you're standing, where you're pulling the string back to, and all of that. And you think that that's easy, right? Just be consistent. Just do the same thing again and again and again. Well, it's really not, and part of that seems to be that I don't really have any idea what my body's doing. There's those points where the instructor's saying, well, you're anchoring out here, or you're anchoring over here, you're anchoring over there, your hand's in a different place, the string pulling hand's in a different place every time, and I'm like, I literally cannot tell. So the way I ended up getting around this, or not getting around it, but just getting better at this, is by making myself a checklist that I would literally say to myself every single arrow. And once I, worked on each bit of the checklist at once until I had a full checklist, which was great because actually it meant that the last 3 arrows that I shot on last week's course, all 3 of them went in the gold, and I was very chuffed to end on that note. So I've got Dan's riser here. I didn't set the bolt because I don't want to be dry firing it and scraping up my arm, which is something I did a lot on the first lesson, somewhat less on the second lesson. So this is sort of the checklist of the things I've learned which to, improve how I shoot arrows. So the first one was, I'm gripping this thing like nobody's business, like it's going to get away from me. But actually, because you're, pulling against, it fits your hand here, so it's snug in an up-down direction, and it's not going to leap out forwards because you're pulling it backwards. So the first thing was that one of the chaps told me to make a sort of stop hand and then lightly curl. So I'm not gripping; it's just resting there, and then sort of curl to keep it all in the same place. So that's checklist number 1: make a stop hand, curl. Next thing is shoulder down. So I'm always locking out, which is how I keep smacking myself on the arm here, and then that brings my shoulder up. So the next thing I sort of remind myself is shoulder down, which stops me from locking out quite so much. That stops me from scraping my arm with the string. So that's, God, this is heavy for the training bow, and it doesn't even have the limbs on. Yeah, Dan's big strong man bow. I'm definitely doing this with a lot lighter bow. For reference, the training bow that they've got me on it's a 16-pound draw and it's a 70-inch long bow. So, yes, because I'm quite tall, but also quite weak. Right, so checklist: make a stop hand. So bring your shoulder down. Stop hand, kill fingers. Shoulder down to stop me locking my arm out. And then for this part, a lot of time I'm doing this. I got my elbow down. So the next thing I have to remind myself is to have my elbow up. Keep my arm out again. So this is, it's one thing to sort of run through the checklist and remind myself to do it, but I've also got to keep an eye out for the fact that having gotten the bow in the right grasp, I don't at a later point grip down or raise my shoulder or anything like that. So right, this shoulder down, this elbow up. Next on my checklist is making sure I always draw it to the same point, so that I'm grooving the middle of my chin here. One of the first questions they ask is, do you have any facial piercings? Because you don't want to get those caught in the bow. But I did ask one of the instructors about, so you warned me about facial piercing, what about your beard? And apparently there are definitely folks who end up getting themselves a bit of a bald patch in the beard because the string plucks the hairs out, which I guess means they always know they're going to the same point on their face. So I'm now drawing it to touch my chin. And then the next thing I have to remind myself is to close my left eye. I'm right-handed and right-eye dominant, so they said I didn't have to close my left eye. My right eye would actually take over, but I actually, it was optional, but I found it easier to close my left eye. And then so then once I'm in position, everything's right, got my foot, that's when I use the sight to aim. And then the last bit that I kept messing up was the release. So I would be kind of doing round, like curling round as I released. So you're supposed to just sort of slide off the string so that you don't move it or change its position. So I was kind of doing a round release, and that was messing things up. So like the last one on my checklist, which I locked in, was doing the release somewhat more correctly, and that actually gave me pretty consistent results right in the gold for the last few arrows. Once I'd worked on every single item in the checklist. It weren't right in the centre in the 10 ring. One of them was, but I feel like getting them all in the gold at a reasonably short distance was enough for me for now for a second proper class, and having seen the improvement that came after having been very methodical and consistent about my process to put my body into the right position and consistently. So that's pretty much how it's going so far. I'm looking forward to continuing, and then maybe joining the club and making this sort of my regular Sunday morning outing. I look forward to continuing with the archery, and until then, I hope you have a smashing day.